ensure that at least I cover as much of the theoretical aspect before we start getting our arms a bit dirty. All right. So when you hear North Star or North Star metrics, ideally, what it means in the context of your product is that metrics that defines all that you do. That metrics that when you say it to anybody in the organization, they understand the value of what it is ideally. And then when you hear leading or lagging indicator, so a leading indicator when you look at your analytics, we'll still talk a bit about it later. But just in case I didn't mention, a leading indicator when we talk about your analysis is something that tells you about the future outcome. So it's usually something that helps you basically predict what will come in the future. So your lagging indicator basically is something that um, explain what has happened already. Again, understand that lagging does not mean that we're talking about something that is saying that we're not doing well. No. In products, when you hear lagging indicator, it means that metrics that shows that has happened. Metric, something that you can measure. And leading means something that is in the future. So you can basically just make assumptions based on it, based on the existing data you have. An example of a lagging metrics would be monthly recurring revenue, for example, based on previous year, right? So you could calculate an average or average monthly recurring revenue based on the amount of money you make last year. However, if you want to give an example of a lagging metrics, a leading metric could be your valuation, right? Your company valuation. A lot of us hear a lot of time that the company says, "Oh, the company is worth $1 billion." Doesn't mean that you have $1 billion on paper. No, it doesn't mean that you have $1 billion on paper. It means that based on the calculation and estimates of what they actually have in paper, the assets that they own, and the estimated quality of their growth, the are probably estimating them to be $1 billion, right? So usually we in tech generally we have those two type of metrics. We have the leading, which talks about data that predicts the future, and then we have the lagging metrics, which talks about data that has happened, something you can basically hold and make reference to, right? I've spoken about activation. Activation is okay. So let me start from beginning. Acquisition is you acquired a customer or a user. You got a user into your app. Activation is this user eventually start using it. I'll explain the difference between the two. So you have um, Innocent, Dogo, Nkechi, and let's see, sorry, Nkechi, Joseph, and everybody on the call, right? Let's assume that you all downloaded your OP app now. But let's say, for example, I'm a salary earner and I can't even have money till the end of the month to put in that account. So ideally, I have been acquired by OP, but because I've not actually started using it, I'm not activated already. So there's acquisition, which means now OP has found a way to actually get me on the app. Now, activation means that now I have started to use the service. Now, there's another one which we call adoption. Adoption is basically um, synonymous or easy to confuse with acquisition. Okay, so adoption rate or adoption is a metrics that you measure over time. So a lot of mistakes, the mistakes that people or product managers make is they assume that acquisition is the same as adoption. Adoption is that this person is considered a user of our app, right? That's what adoption means. This person has adopted our app. This person, we can say that this person is using our app, right? That's what adoption ideally means. But acquisition means that you actually get onboarded on the app. You see the difference between the three. Now, let me explain the three in an example. Innocent installed the app, signed up, and then is able to log into the app. That's acquisition. Innocent made a deposit on the app, right? That's activation. Or Innocent, the company did KYC, for example. Innocent submitted his BVN and everything, and then they say, okay, we'll get back to you after 24 hours or 48 hours, and then bam, they activate Innocent. So automatically, Innocent is able to perform action in the app. That's what we call activation. So Innocent is not blocked from transacting within the app. Activation. Now, adoption can be set at different metrics for different companies. For example, a regular company can say, okay, as long as Innocent transacts, if Innocent transacts on the app minimum of um 5 times, if Innocent transfer on the app 5 times concurrently, right? If after Innocent has transacted 5 times per month, we can now see that Innocent is um has adopted the app, right? We're assuming that okay, another app could say, oh no, if Innocent uses our app to collect his salary, since he's a salary earner, if he uses our app to collect his salary, we would say that okay, Innocent has actually adopted our app, right? So different metrics by different company, depending on your product, you can define the metrics for adoption to it. But don't ever make the mistake of saying that um, the fact that Innocent has now signed up on your app, or the fact that he is even able to transact on the app, is an adopted user. No, adoption comes by activity. So your Innocent must have to have done one or two things in the app based on your metrics to be able to consider him as an adopted user, right? So again, going back from the beginning, acquisition is we got Innocent, maybe by art or anything. Innocent shall signed up on the app. Now, Innocent had to do KYC. So after Innocent did KYC, uploaded his document and every other thing, and we verified him, which means there's nothing stopping him from transacting on the app. We say that Innocent is finally activated, right? But some companies, especially B2B, also used to go a step further. They can say, okay, until, for example, um, in my product, I don't consider you a user at all, except until you have at least minimum of 5 execution. That's when I consider you a user of my platform, that an activated user of my platform. Then when you have execution consecutively for 3 months, I consider you an adopted user. That means you are now finally using my service like uh I believe that you have adopted my service. You most likely not leave my service anytime soon, except of course something is wrong with you because you paid 3 times for the service, right? So that's the difference between the three. Again, please don't join the one background of saying that as long as I've acquired you, you're already my. That's what market people do, right? As long as you go and buy something from them once like this, you're already an adopted user. No, it doesn't work that way. You're an acquired user, right? When you buy or when there's nothing that is stopping you from buying, we say that you are activated. Of course, activation could take time. You could say that, oh, if this person buy first time, I still keep them in activated. We call it funnel. So I still keep them in the activated stage. And then if this user comes back to the market again to buy from me, like he comes to this old market, sees everybody buying rice and comes to my store to buy rice specifically, I'll say, oh, this customer has adopted my store as a supplier for rice. Right. So the same thing applicable in digital products as well. Also, we have another term that we call retention. Now, adoption and retention also a bit similar, but usually companies have metrics for what they mean by retention. For example, ideally, what retention entails is that this person has continued to use the product over a period of time. Some companies will say, once you use the products for a year, we've retained you. Some company will say, once you use this product plus another product for a year, you have retained. So again, depends on the metrics you set as products manager, that this is what retention means for you. And then the final one is conversion. Conversion means that Innocent came to our platform to do transfer. or he was looking for a place to be using to collect his international money. I'll give you an example. What's the name of? Initially, I was using Cleaver. Why did I download Cleaver? Clever or Cleaver, whatever it is. I needed a hub that can help me collect money in dollars, right? Because of my salary. So I said, okay, I tried Gray, I tried every other one. But then I started using Cleaver, and Cleaver was swift, right? I get my money, I'm able to move my money almost instantly. I don't have to wait 10 minutes for my money to deliver. And so I stuck with them in the past few years. But then I needed to make a transaction online, and I realized that Cleaver had a card, right? This card was promoted as a USD card, just like every other one. Then I've tried other app, which I use Gray for. I use Gray for the transaction when I want to do USD transaction. Maybe I want to pay for a subscription or something like that. And then Gray stopped working for some weird reason. Then I said, okay, let me try this. And then I started using Cleaver card for transaction. To Cleaver, I have been converted from the regular collect money and move it out to somebody that actually leaves money in a card over time to actually transact, maybe pay for certain subscription, cloud subscription, Netflix subscription, or whatever it is that I use that card to eventually do. So conversion means that this customer was acquired on this ground, but this customer found another app in the app that they are now using, or we're able to convince them to move from just using the app that acquired them to another app. Again, I hope you guys are writing down because there's no material for this. So as I said, the first one is acquisition, the second one is activation, the third one is adoption, the fourth one is retention, and the last one is conversion. Now, these five are usually considered the funnel, right? We call it acquisition funnel, ideally. Um, Different people with different names for it, but ideally, the sharp funnel. What it means is that your customer is moving from one point to the other in the channel. Once you start converting your customer from one feature to the other, then you're already winning the customer's heart. All right, so I wanted to mention this to you guys. I think I've already explained what churn rate is as well. We've explained RISE model, that it is reach, impact, confidence divided by effort. And also another model called ICE. It's like basically like like RISE, but it doesn't care about the reach. It doesn't care about how many people it will meet. So what ICE believes is that if you prioritize um, your items by the reach, then you are thinking about money more than you are money more than you are thinking about the user needs. So those that ICE is a new model, is pretty much new. I think about 2 or 3 years old. Just all these new age philosophers thinking that okay, if you are prioritizing, we already spoke about prioritization model at length yesterday, so I won't go into it. So if it says if you are prioritizing features on your app based on the fact that how many people we did reach, then at the end of the day, you don't care about the customer, you just care about the money you want to make. So they are saying that let's prioritize it based on impact, based on the confidence we have, and based on the ease of use or ease of use of the application. How would it make the life of the people that work on it even better? Remember that for the E in RISE is actually effort, but in ICE it is ease. What does it mean? In RISE, they calculate the effort required to actually get the job done. RISE model considers how many people this would reach, what is the impact of this when it comes to value, right? What is the impact of this on my customer? Would it make them want to stay? And how confident am I in my initial estimation of reach and impact, then divided by the effort it will take to get the job done, like each task done. Then when you now do your calculation, you now pick the one that has the highest mark. You do that first, and then the one after, and then the one after, and then the one after. For ICE is saying, Baba, it doesn't matter how long effort you will take. The customer should be the focus. So when you are prioritizing, prioritize based on number one, what do I call it now? Impact. What impact would this particular functionality or feature you want to be? What you really make on the users that we're building this for, right? How confident are you that this would actually make that impact, and how easy would it make the life of the users, right? How easy would it make their life? So it's very focused on customer more than it is focused on the business objective, ideally. And then we have Moscow. I explained that yesterday. Must have, should have, would have, won't have. Um, then there's Kano as well. Kano model is, let me quickly show you what it looks like. Kano model is also one of the most amazing model. A lot of construction companies use it to prioritize what they want to do. So Kano has five major category. It has something we call must be. That's like your must have. Things that enhance the performance, that it makes customers more happy to use your platform. Attractive. This one, well, if you build it, it's just something that is just attractive. It doesn't have any, like, it doesn't really have any business value. Maybe we're not charging for it. Maybe the customer is also not asking for it, but it's a cosmetic change. It will make your app look more friendly, right? And then indifferent is, customers don't really care about it. Even us, but we feel like let's just add it because every other person is adding it, right? One feature that I would say is in the indifference today in most of our banking app is booking flights. I don't know if most of us even know. Our Access Bank has a feature inside it. I know Access Bank people are here. I know that even he has not used it before. Do you know that you can book flights with your Access Bank app? Innocent. He's laughing.
Yes, I can. But funny thing is that I work with a flight booking company. So
You
on the
see?
other hand,
But have you used Access Bank to book flight before?
no,
Access
no,
Bank
but
app.
I've not, but I've used where I move Nigeria to look
You
for
see
it, but
life.
I'm not using
Ehen.
it.
So you put book. I don't know why they put booking of flights inside Access Bank. GT Bank also has it. Literally, almost all our bank has that functionality. So that is what we call indifference. The customers are not necessarily asking for it. They can go to Aero Contractor or to go and book their flights. Most people just go to Airpeace website to book their flights. They don't go to the app. I mean, I want to just transfer money. Why are you putting flight booking inside it? So customers are a bit indifferent about the app. And then another thing is reverse. This reverse is a very critical part of the Kano model, which makes it very, very widely used. I will give you an example. For those of us that drive, or maybe you've ever um, been in a car before. Everybody have been in a car before. What am I saying? Sha, when you enter a car and the car starts, right? If you don't put your seat belt in, I mean, for cars that function, I know we're in Nigeria. Some of us, our trot roll does not make that noise. But if you don't put that seat belt in, it will continue to make this po 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 annoying sound. Maybe some of us have not thought about it, but it's actually a feature. Like somebody sat down and said, "Whoa, let's put this po 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 sound to annoy these people." Right? That's what we call reverse. So we put this up usually intentionally to cause dissatisfaction to the user so that they can do the right thing. We have a lot of them. For example, intentionally, why is what are they calling it? Somebody once asked me that question, that why is the accelerator, why is it not what's the use for it? When you want to drive, the accelerator that you press down, right? Why is it not something that you rise up, right? Or I mean, if you are driving, for the I'm using a very complex example. I'm trying to look for example that makes more sense, but that's what is coming to my head. If like the gear of a car, right? The drive is also always not in the front. It is the park that is in the front. The drive is somewhere at the back when you are moving the gear. So you have park, you have reverse somewhere in the middle, and then you have drive almost at the end. You have neutral and then drive at the end of the whatever they call it. So why, if moving forward is drive, why is drive not the first thing at the front, right? These are some of the conversations that people have. Intentionally, they did it that way because it's built your construct of mental structure, ideally, right? So you have some features like that you had there intentionally to help the user, to remind them that they are human beings, right? And they can have flaws, right? And because of those flaws, you have to guide them to take the right decision. So we have some reverse. So must be is like your regular uh I should have, and then performance, like I said, things that will make your customers a bit happy. It might not even be a feature. It might just be that, oh, there's another feature that people are not using, but because that feature is in your app, it's making your app very heavy. So when your customer tries to open the app, it takes time to load. So because of that, you make decision to remove that feature entirely, so that your app will load faster. You know, things like this, you can put it under performance, right? So you group all the features you have into these 5 categories, and then you do the must be first, and then performance later, then attractive, and then indifferent, in that order. So that's what we call Kano model in a nutshell, right? So I explained impact, effort, metrics, opportunity call. We have a lot of them. Basically, how we prioritize. I explained it yesterday. Prioritization models are basically you having. Remember the illustration, right? Right. Remember the illustration. We have these. We have the cover. We have everything. But you want to know which one to do first. So usually we have a lot of philosophy around how to prioritize it, and I've given quite a number of examples. There's many of them, depending on the one your company actually use eventually. Yes, Adiola.
Please, I have something in the chat box. Sorry.
How about nice to have? That's Moscow. Uh, Moscow. No, no, no. Moscow is not nice. Nice to have is not in any framework that me I know. I think it's just something people say. Nice to have. Like I don't think it's in any framework that I know. Right. The one that is a bit common is Moscow, which is must have, should have, could have, and won't have. Right. Nice to have is not. I think it's just a term that we just say. I think this is a nice to have. It's not in the kini of the framework, or maybe there's a framework I'm not aware of about. But these ones that are like I have interacted with, I have learned about them along my journey as a product manager. Some of them I've never used them before, but I learned about them in my journey as a product manager. All right, there's quite a number of them. There's cost of delay. I just recently heard about that last year from my boss. He was in a meeting, and then Meta was a meeting with Meta, and Meta, that was something that Meta mentioned that they were using, and then he was like, okay, bring it. And then he brought it in. We tried it for like a sprint, and then for like a quarter, and it was very chaotic, and we decided not to use it again. So delay is also cost of delay is very, very technical, like extremely technical. You do a lot of maths and English, a lot of calculations just to be able to prioritize one thing. Like it's just stupid, right? But people are coming up with these things. All right, so we also have something we call minimum viable product. Everybody must have heard of this before. Minimum viable product is basically a first increment of your product that you can launch out so that your customers can start using it while you're improving other things. Ideally, that's what minimum viable products. The minimum feature you can add to your app that would help your customers get the desired help that they need is minimum viable products. So I'll use the same example I've been using since the beginning of this class, which is Zap, right? Zap by Paystack decided that they are going to handle transfer. They are not going to do like every other banking app that want to put everything in. They're going to do just transfer for now, and then over time, right, they can add other things. So that transfer functionality that they release first is their MVP, so that customers can start interacting. Now they have over 100,000 customers using their Zap product right now, right? Instead of them waiting till everything is actually fully done. That's the idea behind MVP. All right, we've spoken about PRD, product VP, product brief. In case somebody says, "Oh, I need product brief, not PRD," it's basically a one pager of your entire PRD. That's what product brief is, a summary of your PRD. We've spoken about user story, acceptance criteria, product backlog. We've spoken about print. We've also learned, so what is dependency? Dependency is basically as it sounds, right? You want to do something, but you are depending on one thing to be done before you do the other. So usually dependency comes in different forms. It could be third party. Let's assume you're building, for example, I'm working on a product with a couple of my friends, a logistic product, and we don't have payment license, so we are dependent on a payment provider. We're thinking of using Paystack. Paystack has been troubling us with getting some license and everything. I don't want to get that license. So in that regard, I am dependent on Paystack to be able to move my product forward. If Paystack does not give me the go ahead, then I won't be able to move forward. So that's what we call a dependency. You have dependency on it might not be third party, it might be internal team. It might be that you have dependency on the customer to actually approve something before you can move forward. So dependency is a term that you would also come across a lot. There's something we call scope creep. Scope creep is when you already have the MVP. I already explain what MVP is. When you already have a list of items or a list of things you want to push out, but then your CEO comes and say, "Oh, I think we should add this," and you're like, "Okay, okay," and then you write it down. Somebody can, okay, 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 and then 1 month later you realize that, oh, the feature on my table is more than what I bargained for. And that's what we call scope creep. So you have something you want to do, and somehow, the criticism people are giving is expanding it, expanding it, expanding it, and before you know it, the scope of what you wanted to deliver before has now grown high. That's what we call scope creep. Which other one? Okay. I think every other thing I will discuss it in future conversations. Yeah, every other things or terms I would actually mention it in future conversation. All right. I just feel like mentioning that before we continue. All right. Today we'll be learning about release management. What exactly is even release? So let's talk about release. Aha. So now, before we have been talking about thinking about idea. We even spoke about ideation. How do you come up with ideas? How do you? We've spoken about all that. Now you have idea. We even spoke about how to break down your tasks for your developer. What kind of tasks exist? Yesterday we spoke about the tasks we call stories, and technical story, user stories. We spoke about bugs. We spoke about incidents. So you've now created all these tasks. Your developers are done. So what next? What is next is that you release this to your customer. But we don't just say, okay, now it's ready, bam, customer take. There's a process involved before we release. This is what we call release management. So there's a whole journey, a whole step by step that we take before we have eventually say, okay, these products now go to life. I know, again, yeah. In some of our Nigerian companies, the CEO will just say, release tomorrow, and everybody release tomorrow. But in developed organizations or global organizations, it doesn't happen that way. And that's why you see, again, I'll still give example. Like I told you guys from the beginning, I always give example of companies that are worth emulating, not the regular guys. So I'll give example of Google, Apple. Like they spend a lot of money, like millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of dollars, if not up to millions, every year on that live stream that they do. You can see the amount. Sometimes they bring guys, right? I'm hoping that one of these days I can apply early. I used to see it late anyway, but they allow people to actually apply for free visa sponsor. They take you to San Francisco just to watch the launch, right? Amazing stuff, right? All to just ensure that this release is done properly, and they don't just start release. And just to give you, there's a process also that they do. iPhone 18, I think iPhone 18 is the next one. I'll be 17. I'm not sure. It's not out yet, but some people already have it. Why? Because the companies have sent it to them to test it. Of course, they have signed non-disclosure agreement. They cannot post about it. They cannot do anything about it. But they would use it for them. They would, in the 1 year that you guys are waiting for the next version, they're already using it, giving updates. Some products never get to life because while they are using it, they realize that maybe it got burnt. There's a particular Samsung version that never got out. It never got released to general public because the initial early beta users complained that it was blowing up. Right, you can just put your phone down like this and bam. I don't know if you heard about the gist at that time. Bam, it has blown up. Bam, it has blown up. Right, and they improved it and then they released a later version after that. Again, these are what we call release management. Different companies with their different style, but I would explain a bit on the basic style that we do. The first one is you have to define the release scope. Regardless of what format your company use, maybe they do announcement on radio or whatever it is, the first thing you do before you even release is you have a release scope. In my company, we have three type of release. In the previous company I worked with, they had two types of release. In the one I worked with before that, is just a one release that at the end of every month we ask all the teams, are you ready for it? Is there any release you want to do? And then everybody says, oh, I don't have release and blah blah. At the beginning of the month we have another meeting. We say, okay, do you have any plan to release? And then they say, oh yeah, these are the things we want to release, but we're not done, we're still testing, blah blah blah, like monthly basically. In the second company I worked with, they have two type of release. We have one called accelerated release, and then we have one called planned release. Planned release is a release that the company does monthly, company-wide release, so that company does not have to send email twice. So we pick a day, a period. It could be 2 or 3 days in a month, where every single team in the company would release a certain their features. Everybody must release within that window. If you cannot release within that window, then you have to wait till the next month to release. That's what we call planned release. Then the other one, which the company introduced, was accelerated release. Accelerated release is another time in the month where you can actually release, but you're actually releasing only if that release affects the top 5 or top 10 customers, right? So if top 10 customers are saying, oh, I need this tomorrow, then you can actually opt in for accelerated release. I mean, there are factors to consider. It could be if the top 10 customers are requesting it, or the company have realized that your team is a very mature team. That means when you release, things don't scratch, things don't scatter. I will still talk about that very way. Things don't scatter, right? So they've seen that your team is mature, you know how to manage, release, and release things happy, and there's no beans usually. So they give you that. It's like a honor that okay, you can release at this at particular time. All right. Now in the company I work, we have three. We have another extra one called um hotfix, or there's a particular name we call it. Is the hotfix is a general name, which means that I can release now if what I'm releasing would actually solve a production problem. But we call it a name. So there is planned release, accelerated release, and exceptional release. Except exceptional is not like, oh, you are very exceptional. It's like exemptional, like exempt, like we're giving you, it's not supposed to be released, but we're giving you like a chance to release, right? Exceptional release. And usually there's a team that their entire work is to ensure that you don't release. Right? That's what they are employed to do, right? In developed countries, we call them the agile team or delivery team. They ensure that you don't release when you're not supposed to release, so that will keep customers ideally happy. All right. So exceptional or odd fix allows you to actually release when you want to release. But with the AI world, we're now having companies moving to daily release, which means I can release every day as long as my system has automation system involved. So I'm automating my test so that when I push my code, if anything fails, the automation will pick it up fast before it even gets to production. So I will not even be able to release. It will block the release from happening. I mean, we're in the AI world, so people can now release one of my products. I have about 3, 4, actually 5 products that I'm managing in my current company. One of my products is already matured to that daily release point. So if I want to release anything today, I don't need approvals for it. I just tell my team, have we tested? I test manually and say, guys, release it. And then once they release and push the tag, if there's any issue with that particular code, the pipeline will block it and say, hey, you cannot release. And then they check whatever error that is found. So these are the common type of release, but regardless, you still have to plan it. What exactly is going out in this release? What are we releasing? What are we pushing out? Right? And then you set a release window. I already told you what release window is. Some companies have um, um, once every month, some company one every two, depend on the company you find yourself. But there are rules. Number one, we never deploy on a Friday afternoon. Never, ever. If your company doesn't work on Saturday, then never deploy on Friday afternoon. Because by Friday morning, people already checked out. Please note this. It's a product management 101. Even if your CEO hold your neck like this, you have to release, beg him. Sir, I'm begging you by the name. If not, your weekend is destroyed. Just know, it takes the grace of God for your weekend not to be destroyed. Because usually, I don't know, there's a spirit that follows Friday releases. I've done it, I've seen it, and I've experienced it. You will find a problem that from Friday to Sunday, in fact, till Monday, you guys will still be on calls. Innocent is laughing because he has probably experienced it. I mean, they are bankers, so you have experienced it. See, bro, and sisters, please, my begging for you, don't release on Fridays. And why is this very important? Because the people's brain has checked out of work, and not because they want to do you bad, but even because their own brain, they don't understand what's happening with their brain anymore. So it takes the grace of God to even make it work, right? So on Fridays, I remember, I think like 2 weeks to my wedding, thereabouts. I remember that I was supposed to go on leave, like I was planning to go on leave. I wanted to release everything and move on. Hiya, hiya. We started meeting around 8 p.m. We roll back. That's it. I'll teach you about rollback. Basically means that you have released, but you push back that change. We roll back the release, and the problem was still there. We stayed on the call from 8 p.m. till around 10 a.m. the next morning. We were on the Teams call, like all of us are on the Teams call like this. My manager's manager entered, like different manager was entering and like, how are we doing? What's going on? The entire system was down for almost one full day, even more than one full day, right? Everybody's just right, and this one is even funny because everybody was there. It wasn't like, oh, somebody left us. Everybody was there, right? So we're trying to figure it out. So again, luckily for me, this product was not a product that was very, very live already. So the impact was not much. All the releases I've done usually that had issues was products that they just handed over to me, and I've really not understand what the product is. My products, before we even release, bro, we test. We will over test safe before release, because you see that production panic is one thing I really don't like, especially when you deal with when you work with some, because we are recording this, some kind of people, right? You don't want to hear some words. You don't want people to say some words to you. I work with amazing people in my current company, but like in the previous places I've worked, oh sorry, you hear some terms. They are not sacking you, but they need you to know that you fucked up, and they will say trash to you, right? So this is very important. We released and customers are yeah, bank wahala, right? So again, if you are lucky and you get to work in bank, it's even crazier. So I'm taking my time to explain this to you. Don't release on weekend. There was an incident with Starling Bank. One of my colleagues, or should I say friends, way back when we were in uni, does not have a Nigerian bank account today because of that. Her BVN was blacklisted. Till today, she can't open any bank account. She's using husband's account now. She can't open any bank account ever again. And what happened? The bank released a release like us. We use it as cautionary tale amongst my peers. Sterling Bank, right? Sterling Bank. They released, and after release, people realized that they could actually send money to themselves. Right now, you can't transfer to yourself, ideally, right? Makes no sense. So when you want to transfer, you can't transfer to your same account. You have to transfer to another account. But people realized they could send money to themselves. So they tried it and then realized that, oh, I could actually send money to myself in the same app. So if I have 100,000 and I send 100,000 to myself, it becomes 200,000. I send 200,000 to myself, it becomes 400,000. So my balance keeps growing and growing and growing. And a lot of people cashed out mad millions during that period. So all the people that cashed out mad millions, banks found them and then locked some of them up. Some of them were able to pay back. She could not pay back the money because, according to that time, she had the friend that they spent the money together. Eventually she finally found the entire money, paid back, but she was not able to get back her BVN. Right, a lot of people, not just her, a lot of people at that particular time. It was a popular story as at then, right? And why? Because some people decided to release without looking at the proper thing they do. So release is a very critical point. And I'm not even saying for fintech alone, for any industry, that action is an action that will determine if your customer will say yay or the customer will say no, right? So this is the ideal scenario. Sorry, bro. I'm just reading innocent problem. Thank God you not sleep in cell. All right. So please, usually when I talk to product manager, I tell them this a lot. Please understand that your product is not just any product. This thing that you are building, lives depend on it. And if anything go wrong, you go wrong. Like you go wrong. Like you go wrong. I don't know if they still do it, but there was a time, I think Diamond Bank did it as at that time, where when you join a bank, they will first take you to Kirikiri to go and see your colleagues, people that joined bank with you before that are now in prison, right? Serving their time. And they introduce you to each other and say, oh yeah, these are your colleagues. You might eventually end up here if you're not careful. They tell you all the nooks and corners, and they let you know that, see, you are not here to play. I'm not sure if banks still do it. It was a very scary step in those years. But the point is, your role as a product manager, before they even call in fact, if they call your CEO will call you. That's the direct. I used to say this story, but I stopped saying it because it almost put me in a problem when I was working with Wallet Africa. But again, your CEO will call you. They will say, hi, meet Michael. Michael is at that time I was not even a product manager, by the way. I was a product intern. When I'm here, attend to, you know, these people on these people that innocent. At the end of the day, your CEO will call your name. So it's very, very important that you are very, very careful with whatever it is that you release out. All right. Still on release, setting your window, avoid during peak hours. Always know your peak hour. For me, I know my peak hours. My peak hours are during any time aside from 5 a.m. in the morning. It's a peak hour for me. My system is always on. Minimum of 1 million transaction going on every second. So every time in 24 hours, the peak hour for me, except 5 a.m. And that 5 a.m. is because 5 a.m. my time is because it's like a major prayer time in the region. So I think, is it 5 a.m. or 4 something? Shasha, it's a major prayer time in the region. So most of my customer are either praying or the customer himself are praying, and so executions are not very much. So usually it is within that window that we used to release. So that's why I said 5 a.m. my time, 3 a.m. my time, 5 a.m. their time. Yes, it was during prayer time. So 3 a.m. my own time. 6 a.m. their time. So 3 a.m. my time usually. So I used to do release in the middle of the night. At first, when I got married, my wife did not understand it, but now she understands. So I don't sleep till 3. Before that release, I'm already testing. So you have that window. We have like a 30 minutes window. We release, we test, we know that everything is fine. If there's a problem, we roll back immediately. But thanks to God, who makes his face to shine on my eyes, have not had a bad release in the past 2 years, right? Especially on the product, because the product got handed over to me 2 years ago, and the first few months was terrible, right? So when you release, after the release, then everybody go and sleep, and they will come back and start work by 7 again, right? Usually that's the case. That's the cycle. Except, of course, you have multiple release, and then you have to be awake till the morning, and then you start another journey. All right. Coordinate with marketing and user. Yes, this is also something I mentioned this earlier, but low key. So I would explain the way I handle it. I've seen product managers say, "What's my own with customer support? We are releasing. We'll put it in that channel." No, we call something KT session, knowledge sharing session, or uh, it's called KT section. I'm not sure what's the full meaning of KT, but we call it KT section. We get used to it. We're already used to it. So what exactly is the session about? You have a call with sales, right? You tell them, "Hey guys, we are releasing this," and then they will ask you questions. Sales guys, sales and marketing, very inquisitive. "Oh, okay, why is this button not green? Why is this button not blue? Our color is black." Yeah, everything. The goal of that meeting is not for you to take feedback, really, but you go there and tell them, "Oh, okay, so I'll be demoing what we're releasing, and then I want to get some feedback from you guys." The reason is not because you want to get feedback, it's so that they will know what you've released and then tell the customer. Now, there's also another set of people I used to do KT session with. I actually have one this week. Now I'll speak with customer support and say, hey guys, how you doing? My G's. Yes, knowledge transfer session. Thank you. My G's, how far? I talk to customer support. You might have some tickets this week. Oh, I say, what's going on? One of my guy in the office, when I said we know how so he used to laugh. Say, Michael, we know we won't have tickets. Just go straight to the point. I said, you might have tickets. Now let me prepare your mind in case everybody customers come and open tickets so that you know how to answer them. So I show them the platform and they say, oh, okay. Now this is better, blah, blah, blah. And then during the call, some of them will tell you, oh, we even have an open ticket. Customers complained about this. Customers said, oh, they wanted this. Oh, okay. Give me the list of them so you can send emails to those customers. Say, hey, we finally did it. We have make you happy. And then the customers saying, sure, or something like that, right? I know it can be very funny. But yeah, during release is always an exciting moment. Also, you need to discuss also with your management team. Your team definitely knows that you are releasing, but then your management team, hey guys, we're releasing something good. Or after release, you make an announcement. Glory to God. In my company, we call it shout out. So you do shout out to you, shout out to like 1 million people. Shout out to this person, shout out to this person, shout out to that person. If not because of them, we won't have been able to release. Like, you just say a lot of fancy, romantic things, and boom. The goal of that shout out is not just to do shout out. It's so that everybody in the company know that you have released something new. So people will now come to your DM. Oh, Michael, I saw that you guys released. Yeah, we have integration with HubSpot now. Oh, really? So can we do this? Say, yeah, we can do it. Do you have a customer that wants to do it? Say, yes, I have a client. They have been asking for it for ages. Oh, really? Let's set up a call with them tomorrow. And then blah, 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 blah. So that's why we do the meeting, right? It's not because we like meetings. As a matter of fact, I don't like meetings, but that's why we do it. And also check external dependencies. So before you do release, always check. Especially, remember I've spoken about dependencies, people that you need them to be able to release something. So when we are eventually releasing that our app to life, we need to check, is Paystack okay? So that when our app finally goes live and issues comes up, we won't start debugging something on our end and Paystack is basically down. I remember I was teaching my students. I was teaching actually that day, and we're learning about AI. We're learning Claude, how to use Claude code and everything. And all of a sudden, no AI system works anymore. All of us here will remember at that time. I don't know if anyone was, you were trying to use ChatGPT and it was not answering you. You tried to use Lovable, it was not answering you. It was like a 2 hours window thereabout, right? During the day. Everybody was on Twitter scattering. Me, I did not know. I was here teaching. And I was saying, oh, maybe it's my internet. And then my students were checking and they said, oh, guys, it's the same thing on my hand as well. And we went to check and they realized that almost everybody was down. And it was because their data center was actually off at that particular time. Now, why am I saying this? It's very interesting because you might be trying to debug something that is not even your fault. So, which is why we need, yes, I think that was Cloudflare issue, which is why we need essentially to always coordinate with third party to know what is going on. In fact, some people are gone. I'll give another example. During the old Iran fight started, when it busted out and everywhere, 2 data centers in the MENA region was burnt down. And what does that mean for us? I mean, for our company who puts data there, it means that our database are actually down. That's all it means. Thank God for we call it. Let me just teach you now once and for all. We call it. I'm trying to remember the exact word we use. So because of it's not load balancer. Load balancer is a different thing. Load balancer is you have a lot of people visiting your website and you don't want this is how load balancers work. I feel like somebody said load balancer. That's what I'm trying to explain now. Imagine you have 100 people wanting to enter the same door. It will be very hard for them to enter the same door. So because of that, you create 4 or 5 doors to the same room, right? That's what load balancers is. So they are not necessarily removing the room itself. But we have another one we call HA, yes, high availability. So this high availability, what we do ideally is, if let's assume this cup is what we use to drink water every time in the house. I don't have another cup. But if what we do used to do water every time, it has served us. It's a very good cup. We now have we now create another cup like this that everybody that uses this cup has access to. We'll create it beside it so that in case somehow this cup stop serving us, it's easy to just switch to this one without necessarily affecting those that use the cup. That's high availability. But there was a lot of companies that didn't have high availability, and this is an advice for you guys as well. Please note, especially when you have a third party, always have a fallback. In this product that I said I'm building, my major provider is Paystack, but I have Sparkle Bank as my fallback. As a matter of fact, I enforce that my team integrates first with Sparkle before Paystack, because I know once they do Paystack, they'll say, "Oh no, my guys." I said, "Please, guys, we're not using Paystack. Let's use Sparkle." And then they worked on Sparkle. After that, and I told them, "Oh, okay, now we can go to Paystack." And they was like, "Why do you now waste our time?" Me, I know it's not waste of time, because a day will come when Paystack will be down. I'm not praying for them to be down, but there will be a scenarios where they will be down. We don't necessarily have to be down as well. So that's why we call high availability. So when you have, again, this is not part of what we're talking about, but when you have third parties that you use, always consider Ishe. We call it Ishe. Any DevOps guy will tell you Ishe is high availability, ensuring that if one provider is down, you can actually switch the load to the other one without necessarily affecting your traffic. Right? So everybody's shouting, hey, everybody in the MENA region was shouting, like in that Saudi Arabia, in Dubai, everybody was saying, like a whole company is a fintech literally closed down for about 7 days. And when they came back, most of their customers already ported and they had compliance issues, so they closed down finally because of the data center. So high availability is actually non-negotiable, especially you can't depend on one provider. It's not possible. Learn to not do that, please. Payment providers, whatever provider you're using. So I remember that there was a product I worked on. We had three payment provider. We just needed one, but we had three, because in the region at that time, only two of them support Apple Pay. So the other one was trying to support Apple Pay. So they were having a lot of problems and all that. So because of that, we had to set up the three of them so that if one is having problem, even on the customer's browser, like they can switch to the other one, right? So which is really, really dope for us. So note that. So this is set the window, release window. Make sure that everything is set before you actually release what you want to release. Then you have a bit of checklist. Number one checklist is make sure that the product is tested in staging environment. QA signed up on it. Who's QA? QA is quality assurance engineer. In most cases, right? For example, in my company, we don't have QA anymore. We have a new role called software development engineer in test. These guys don't test apps manually. They don't go and say, "Oh, the button is working." They don't have time for that. They write code to automate that test. So that when they are not around, the automation system can run the test for them. So ensure that they signed off. My QA is a very, very lovely person, but if she says no, I know it's no. I will call her back and say, "Why are you shouting on me in a call?" Say, "Mike, it's not like that. But if you release this now, I'm not confident enough." I say, "How confident are you?" She say 85%. 85% is enough now. No, I have to be 100% confident. QA has to give your sign off. Your person testing your system has to tell you that the system is okay before going in. Of course, this is also important to say that sometimes the system is not 100% okay when you push, right? Sometimes they might have little change. And that's where this P0 and P1 box come in. When you hear P0, P1, when you hear zero in tech generally, like if they're counting up and they say 0, 1, 2, 3, you see that 0 is the most chaotic problem. 0 is the biggest. Like when you see P4 is like one minimal problem, right? But when you see P0 problem, is a problem that your CEO might need to enter the call with you, right? So if the problem is not P0 or P1, or maybe sometimes for me, I prioritize P2 as well. If it is not P0, P1, or P2, if it's a P3 event, usually cosmetic change. Maybe it says, "Oh, there's supposed to be dark theme for this particular page, but the dark mode is not working." Dark mode is not working. That's the problem. You can release, right? Because it's cosmetic change. It doesn't affect the actual actions. So that's allowed, right? But core functionality, like customer is unable to log out, customer is unable to log in, bro, you can't release. So that's very essential. Then edge cases, make sure that you test all the edge cases. Have a rollback plan. What does rollback plan means? So with large organizations, how do we release ideally? What does release mean? What does it mean technically? What it means is that I know some of us have heard of GitHub, right? Before. So you have like GitHub or Bitbucket, depending on the one your company is using. It's like a storage where they keep files. Think of it like as your folder or your laptop or your flash drive where files can be kept. So sometimes when they release, there's something called branching. I'll still explain basically when we get to technical stuff. There's something called branching where you release to a particular branch, and then that branch is connected to your production environment. So you can have multiple branch. One is connected to your staging environment or your development environment, and the other one is connected, and that's branching. But there's also another type of release, which is tag. So you create tag, and then that tag is being released. Once you create tag, it's released to production. Now that tag, oftentimes developers forget what exactly it is because it has the format, so to say. They forget the tag, especially when the new tag has overridden the old tag. So what we do is that as product managers, you ask them, what is the latest tag that is working fine in production right now? You document it so that if there's any problem, they can roll back to that tag. But usually, if you don't document anything, if there's a problem and everybody's asking you, what's the formal tag? Your developer will tell you they don't know, they can't remember. And then that's a bigger problem. Then you don't have anywhere to roll back to, except maybe a previous one that is saved somewhere, right? Again, which creates a bigger problem for you because some of the things that your customers have seen, they will no longer see it again because you roll back to a old version that you can remember. So this is very important. So document what your rollback plan would be. Add feature flag. We use feature flag is owned by product managers, by the way. We use platforms like Hotjar, platforms like User Pilot, platforms like what's this one that we use again? Oh, and we still looked at it today. Oh. Let me quickly do Ojoro. Because that's the main one that I love to use. Launch Darkly. Yeah, we use platform like Launch Darkly. Okay, so we use platform like Launch Darkly, so to say. Launch Darkly and User Pilot and all of this, they allow us to define, for example, I can say that customer A and B should see black, customer B and C should see white, right? You can be able to define what some customers see and what other customers don't see, even though it's the same code, right? So that's what we call feature flag. So you're able to flag that, okay, some customers can see this, other customers cannot see this. So even though your code is in production, it is not visible to everybody, right? That's what we use. That's what we call feature flag. So again, most of these things you have to learn on the job because 6 weeks is just too small to learn everything and also be practical, right? But please bear with me. You learn on the job, and if you have any issue after the program, you can always reach out to me, right? When you're in the job, I'll also be able to help you out with it. All right, so also ensure that there's an on-call engineer, which means that if I release and I test and everything is good, there's somebody that will not go to sleep for the next 2 hours to ensure that if there's anything that go wrong after we have tested, I can call them, right? That's what they call on-call engineer. Or after 4 hours, sometimes 24 hours. Some companies run shifts, right? They have on-call engineer, they pay them extra than the regular they pay, right? So they pay them extra for every time that they those that work in bank will understand. There are people that sleep in data center, they do night shifts, and company will pay them. Some of them even do weekends, so company pay them for the weekends as well, right? So that's what on-call engineers are ideally there. They are there to ensure that if anything happens, you can help them. So you ensure that you know your on-call engineer, not like you now call Buddy. Buddy, Alpha, something is wrong. Buddy say, Papa, I'm not working today. I'm sleepy. Who is on call? I don't know. You call Kunle. Kunle Alpha. You call Stella. Stella say, Papa, leave me. You call everybody just saying leave me because you don't know who exactly is. And the on-call engineer is sipping coffee, feeling like there's no job for him, right? So that's why you have to document and know all that beforehand. So these are a bit of, you can read through. Grafana dashboard is open, basically your logs, right? The log, okay, so there's logging. We'll still talk about it very much later. There's login, where you see all the incidents that are happening or all the events that are coming into your system. If there's a problem somewhere, you can catch it during the release. So you make sure that all those things are there for you to see. And then your release notes. It is not after release that we write release note. We write it even before the product is ready, right? You write your release notes, make sure that it has been reviewed and it has been approved by necessary quarters, right? Because some companies, their release notes has to be rewritten by their company's content creators. In my company, the release note has to be rewritten because I don't speak Arabic. Most of our customers are Arabic speaking customers. So what we do is I create the release notes and send it to our content person. The person looks at my release notes, tries to understand it, asks questions if there's any, and then converts it into better English, better Arabic, and then send a copy to the customer. Right? That's basically some of the checklists. You can please always read this over and over again before you release. It will help you. This is my personal checklist. I hope it helps you. All right. So we have release strategy. We have big bang release. Big bang release is we put everything to the user at once. Release strategy is okay. So how do we release? Like, how do we ensure that this thing gets to the user? Yeah, there are strategies to it. Again, the big bang is the most common one, where we release everything we have done to all the users at once. Canary release is that we release it little by little. One of the company that does Canary release well is WhatsApp. WhatsApp does not release all the features at once. That's why. How many of us saw the username feature when everybody was shouting about it? You saw it. Let me see your hand. Or you went to look for it and you cannot find it on your own, but 2 days later you found it. Anybody? Yes. Lovely. So that's what we call Canary release. So in most cases, I have a lot of customers. So instead of me giving the features to all my customers, I give it to some of them. When I see that the approach to it is good, then I push it out to everybody. But if I give it to, I'll give you a feature that WhatsApp released and rolled back immediately. Not immediately, but like a few days after. I used it well. Unfortunately, I was one of the lucky few that got it first. Is the video audio recording. You know that audio recording that is circular that shows your head when you are recording it. Circular, like you are recording voice notes, but it shows your video. That functionality was first released in 20. When was? I think 2024. I think 2024 or 2023. It was because I remember I was sending it to my friends that time, and all of them were saying, "How are you doing it?" I say, "Oh, you tap." And at that time, it was not tapping. Now you have to tap, right? Or I don't know if now you're not tapping it. I don't use it anyway. At that time, I think you have to do something, and when they do it, it doesn't do on their hand. So I was like, "Oh, okay, the release is not just popular." So I tormented a lot of people with it. That's why I remember. And then all of a sudden, it stopped working for me. And why do they do Canary release? So that they can get feedback early and then improve it over time. I think they rolled it back because of user experience. Because after they finally released it, it works very fine. I think better. Let me see if I can do it now. Who should I send video voice notes? Okay, let me send to my wifey. Okay, it's not working again. Abi, it's me that I don't know how to do it. Yeah, it doesn't work again. Oh, it works. Now they have it as a feature under voice notes. Aha. So I think it was the user experience. You guys can see, but now they have it as a feature under, like you want to do camera now. You go and click on camera and then you move to voice notes, right? Before, it wasn't on that feature. It was you tap your audio button twice to actually bring it up. So when they realized that the user experience was something that people were not seeing, there was a feature that they pushed, but customers are not seeing that it's there. So what they do is they pull it back and then put it in a different place or improve it before now rolling it out to the user. That's one of the advantages of Canary release. You can pause at any point. Is Canary release? No, usually is random. In most cases, it's usually random. Sometimes it is prioritized based on certain users, but it depends on your company. right? But it's usually random. Most cases, it's random. You, I've tried at least the one I've done. Usually, the one I did with my company recently, it was random. We just picked random. Like even this platform that we use, the one I just mentioned now, Launch Darkly. Launch Darkly has a feature that allows you to randomly set it. Like it will randomly distribute it to your user until all of them now have it. You can even set the timeline. You can say, okay, distribute to the first 5%, after 10 days, another 7%, like that, like that, like that, like that. Usually it's random, right? But customers can, you can also set it based on criteria, right? The first distribute to customers that meet these criteria first, and then after customers that meet that criteria, then you distribute to every other one that is left, right? So it could be, it's just like when you want to do A/B testing too, you have criteria for it. But yeah, that's how Canary release work. And then the feature flag is what I just explained. I explained the other time. Feature flag is it allows you to say, okay, some customers will see this, others will see that. Now, what's now the difference between Canary release and feature flag? So this is the major difference. Canary release, they are releasing everything. They are releasing everything, releasing to certain users small by small, right? That's Canary release. Feature flag, they are releasing everything to production at once. Bam, is in production. So usually for Canary release, they use load balancers. But for feature flag, it's usually not like load balancers. It's like they are releasing the code is in production already. It's on your phone already, by the way. That feature is already on your phone. But what they are doing is that they are disabling it based on your user ID. So if your user ID is not part of the people that are supposed to see it, it will be hidden from you. So it's like you saying that, okay, don't show this to, even though I can, like, how do I say things? Uh, right? So even though this thing is in front of me, I can use something to cover it so that this person will not see it. So I've released, right? Ideally, I have released this to production, but I am hiding it from some people pending the time I get feedback from others. That's ideally what feature flag is. Usually, we use feature flag to do the best of it is A/B testing, where you have your usually your company is not, you could not decide which color goes well, right, for a particular button. So you show different colors to different people, and then you see the one that has more click rates, right? The one that has the highest click rates will now be released to everybody, something like that. Or a feature was designed in a certain journey was designed. Another journey, maybe one journey was 4-step, another journey was 5-step, and then the 5-step journey had richer experience, even though it was longer. And then the first story was shorter, but it felt boring. So, but you wanted to see which the customers would tilt towards. So you push both of them to certain users, and then you now, based on that, based on interaction, you now decide which one to go with. That's what we basically call A/B testing. And then instant rollback. This one is what I said we use a lot when you are doing release, right? Instead of, even though you have released it to production, don't activate it yet. Activate it for current users. I activate it for my admin user, me. I'm a user of the platform. I activate it for myself. I test it first and say, oh, okay, it works now. Okay, and let's push it out to everybody. So then you now push it out to everybody. Then targeted rollout. We only want to roll this out to beta users, not every other user, right? That's also so the feature is available to everybody, but it's just hidden for some people. So that's what we call feature flag. And then the last one is blue-green deployment. Blue-green deployment is basically your feature flag as well. Is also feature flag, but it's just, I intentionally added it. It's just a way for you to, it's just a term. So I don't want you to get it mixed up. When you hear blue-green deployment, it basically means feature flag. So some users are seeing the old version, and then other users are seeing the feature that you actually pushed. So you are turning off the feature for some, and then turning it on for others. That's basically what blue-green deployment means. It just calls it a different thing, basically. So release notes. What should we consider when we're writing release notes? Just like I told you, again, I will repeat again. The PRD sample I gave to you is not final. I didn't say, okay, these are the only parts of a PRD. No, I'm saying these are the most important parts of a PRD. Any other parts that you're adding, you must validate that that part is not going to make the PRD harder to read, right? I remember that's what I said before. All of you come and say, oh, Mr. Shola say we should not write PRD that is long. And then your boss say, okay, you go and get job from Mr. Shola, right? So please, please let's understand the balance. All right, the same thing applicable to release notes. I'm actually not saying that this is set in stone, the only thing. I'm saying that these are the key things that every release note should have. Number one, the version, right? You want to be able to add the version so that your customers, when they report, they can easily tell you when things started going bad, right? The version and the date. Number two, what's new? Usually, what's new is like a feature or new. Usually, this is also on certain apps, even on Play Store. If you go to Play Store, you see some apps, just that Play Store does not validate that. So, or you go to your App Store, you see the release notes. It tells you the version and what is different now, right? So what's new? Bug fixes, some of the things that was broken before, but now you have fixed it. And then known issue, some of the things that was broken before, or it is now newly broken. But you have to, sorry guys, I know you might see some things that is working on your screen. It is not your village people, it is us. We have cooked beans there, but we are working on it, right? So your release note has to be um clear enough for your customer to know that okay, we had released but we have not solved this particular issue, we are still working to solve it. And then what is a breaking change? Now breaking change is what is something that you do normally before that would slightly change. For example, say before they could log in directly, but now you are saying you are enforcing two-factor authentication. So you, when you push the release note, you tell them, hey customer, next time you try to log in, you will ideally not be able to log in the way you log in because we are adding a two-factor authentication. The moment you log out, you have to compulsorily put your OTP. If not, you won't be able to go in, right? These are breaking change. So this is usually what a release note looks like. So for example, this is a sample release note. The version, the date, what's new, you can now connect up to 5 banks, fixed in transaction imports for GTB, blah, blah, blah. No need to use any bank import occasionally shows duplicate, but do you understand? So also release notes should be very clear. It should not be what do they call them? It should not be one. I think maybe some of you might feel like I don't like big documentations, but it's not me alone. It's everybody in the world, right? Nobody likes when something is too voluminous, right? So your release notes should be as simple and easy to read as possible. As you see the example, this is all the release notes. I should not be reading 7 pages of your release notes. Why? Why am I? Are you giving me a manual for a app, right? No, just summarize and keep it simple. Um, so when I finally release, what should I do? The first 30 minutes, oftentimes you check your logs, make sure that it's not after release, it's not a time that you say, oh, time to go and sleep, and then you remove your headset. I know people, if I used to talk to them in my team, I know people like that. After the release, just say, Michael, I'm going to bed. No, Mike, they can go to bed anyway because they know they have Michael. But usually, as a product manager, your role is not to go to bed. Your role is to actually to stay stuck with logs, check your logs, make sure that your message is actually open, ensure that support is not reaching out to you and saying, hey, something has cut out, blah, blah, blah. Make sure that you start testing yourself, right? So sometimes after release, myself, I go through flows, I go through executions, I check, oh, how are people doing? Oh, is this doing? There's 2 of my clients, they're top of my top clients. I go into their account, I check if everything is fine because I know they are always actively running execution. So I check, working, going fine, going fine. So at least usually 30 minutes, 1 hour after work, I'm still basically on my PC after release. And like I said, I always release in the middle of the night so that you understand how much I take this seriously. Like I said, even though I know they cannot come and arrest me in Nigeria, for most of my staff members, I only have 2 colleagues in Nigeria. Most of my staffs are outside the country. Now, I know they cannot come and arrest me, but the responsibility, the how did I call it? The image, image matters, right? I told you, I don't know if I told you guys this. My former CEO, like the CEO of the company I was working before, was the one that recommended me for this particular job. So you can see, and usually most of my job recommendation. So personally, I believe my integrity is at stake if my solution is not working as it should. So I want you to take that kind of ownership, especially anybody that comes through me. I used to tell them, take that kind of ownership, that it's not just about the salary. It's not about how much you're willing to pay me. Of course, they should pay you well, but it's not about the money. It's not about the glory. It's about the integrity, that I know that I will not leave. They know that Michael will not leave this except something is wrong. If anything goes wrong, my boss is always asking me, "Are you fine?" Because he knows if I'm okay, nothing will go wrong, right? Anytime he sees, if he notices my countenance a bit, he's telling me, "Do you need leave? Do you need to go on, take a day off?" Right? Because he knows if I'm sharp, I will ensure that things are done properly, and that should be your integrity, right? So for me, even though I release in the middle of the night, I stay up 1 hour, 30 minutes, 1 hour, just to ensure that everything works fine before I now go to bed. And this does not mean that I don't have life or I don't like sleeping. As a matter of fact, I'm married, right? So of course, I have other things that I want to do as well. But integrity means that you should stay behind and check that everything you're doing works fine, right? So this is how everything works. Any questions so far before we end the class today? I hope there's plenty question anyway, because we're talking about release.